All right. Welcome back to another live stream here on the Financial Summit YouTube channel. Unfortunately, today the face cam is out, so you're going to have to do without Sammy's handsome face. But we're going to be going through some really interesting price action here because for the first time in a little bit, Bitcoin has woken up, right? I mean, it's been relatively, kind of not really doing anything, relatively stable for about 10 days, but we have seen our first little nice bit of price action. And it also gives us a breakout here, which is very exciting. So I'm going to be covering this with you in this live stream today as we get into this price section. And as usual, if you want to get more of this content from myself, you can't see me right now, but I'm Sami, then you can find the link to my YouTube channel in the description below. Right after this live stream, I will be on my YouTube channel covering some of these ideas as well and going into a little bit more detail. So if you like that, go ahead and check it out. But for now, let's get into this. And what we've seen here is Bitcoin peaking at about the mid 71K range and then returning back down to our beautiful support at 67K. And that is absolutely fantastic because that is what we want to see. We want to see that Bitcoin is consistently hitting its resistance levels and then finding support of its support levels, right? It puts us in a very, very healthy situation in the market. And it also means that we've now spent a very good amount of time consolidating up in this price range, right? If we take a look at the previous times that Bitcoin was kind of in these price ranges right here, we spent 3 days on this occasion here. We even fell out of it, but it was about 4 days on this occasion here, which is more valid. It was about 7, and here it was about 8. So far from the time that we entered this range up until now, it's been 2 weeks, right? Which is definitely showing us that with these price zones, the market is definitely getting a little bit more comfortable. And that, if it's happening at a resistance level, is always going to be an indication that, it's not always, but it's generally, in my experience, going to be an indication that you're actually going to be seeing some really nice price action following through with that. And so if that does end up happening, then we are potentially looking at a nice explosion upwards if we are able to get above this resistance zone. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to at this stage in the market here. Given that we have got this resistance level up ahead, I want to see Bitcoin come up to this resistance zone. And I'm also conscious that, the first time we ever hit this zone, we broke it relatively easily. No drama, really. The next time, we did get a couple of rejections here, and the next time, some more rejections. But we've already had this rejection here. We've had a small one right now. We have tested this level extensively. And quite frankly, ladies and gents, there was no price history ever established here other than what we did in March and April. And so, I really don't think that this is going to be the most formidable zone of resistance, right? I don't think that this is going to be the heaviest zone of resistance for Bitcoin to deal with. And because of that, I do feel like if we are able to get back up here, maybe we get a little rejection, but I wouldn't really expect anything too crazy. I would certainly expect maybe some higher lows, keeping the ceiling, form that ascending triangle and break out, right? Something a little bit like that. Or maybe just blast straight through it, right? I mean, it's obviously, I think, going to depend on things like traditional finance, which is something else that we like to look at on these shows. Of course, it is very, very important. We've seen a big pullback for the S&P 500, followed by a big recovery on Friday. But today, on Monday, with this open here, and this S&P 500 session is about halfway done now, we have seen a nice little pullback here, which I think is just a good sign for Bitcoin, because if the S&P 500 is pulling back, but Bitcoin's still kind of hanging out and doing okay, then that's definitely a sign that Bitcoin is behaving independently. So I think that's great. Shout out to Tom Vase in the live chat. How you doing, man? Thank you all to those of you that are tuning in. If you are enjoying this live stream so far, then definitely smash up the likes and double check that you are subscribed to the Financial Summit channel for this one. Like I said, unfortunately, no face cam today, but that is okay because the price action is the fun part here. And so, yeah, I think that's the upside target for me, and I'm not too worried about it breaking. And if it does end up breaking, then this becomes a very fun discussion because it's price discovery time again, right? We're going to have potentially another little zone of resistance at about 74. Potentially another one at like 72. But, I just can't be worried about these zones of resistance, to be honest. And the reason I can't be worried about these zones of resistance is because, again, there's no price history up here. And I mean, yeah, it's a previous all-time high, but we've now spent, and by the way, it has been like, pretty much 90 days, right, since that all-time high. Yeah, 81 days since that all-time high. And 95 days, 96 days since we even entered this price range. So we've really spent a lot of time up here. it has been a bit of a turbulent journey, right? Obviously, we had that nice breakout up here. We had another breakout down here. We had a bunch of stuff happening in between. I think that there is a beautiful opportunity for a resolution of this range now, meaning that we kind of see what happens outside of this range. And I think that could happen relatively soon. Now, on the flip side, if that doesn't end up happening and we start trending down again, then we still have support down here at 67K. And of course, if we end up losing that zone of support, then there's going to be many more beautiful zones even lower, right? So here's one that I quite like down at about $63,000. Really nice price zone for Bitcoin to fall down to. And I guess that really nicely paints the picture for Bitcoin that regardless of what actually happens here, it's hard to shake the bullish stance of this chart. Okay. And that's quite obvious because if you zoom out, and you take a look at what this chart has produced, it is an incredibly strong chart. I mean, it's basically, and we can perhaps visualize this even more clearly on the logarithmic scale. We've basically been seeing up and sideways, up and sideways, up and sideways, right? So if that's going to be the characteristic of this trend, then get ready. It's going to be quite crazy. And I also think that it's going to be quite exciting to trade, right? So that's definitely looking good from that particular perspective, in my opinion, as well. And it's something that I'm going to continue to keep an eye out for. I also like to look at a couple indicators, and I'm going to go ahead and do that because they do continue to bolster the same points I'm giving you. Obviously, naturally, I'm much more interested in doing analysis on a naked chart without any indicators because that's what real analysis looks like, in my opinion. And if you have to rely on indicators, then perhaps that says something about your core skills and the lack of development there. So you really have to, I don't even mean that rudely, you just have to look into it, and make sure that you got the basics down before you start trying to add supplements, basically, right? Like you need to get your meat and potatoes in before you start looking at Tonkat Ali and stuff like that, right? So it's the same thing here. And because of that, yeah, beautiful support here on the 4-hour Ichimoku, definitely helping out with this. Daily Ichimoku, amazing support if we end up dropping down. So I'm just not worried on these longer term perspectives. And on the 1 hour, we have started to trend a little bit, but it's still too early to say anything. Take a look at the EMA ribbon for a view of momentum, and we've obviously started to develop a nice spread on the EMA ribbon, and we've also successfully found support off this ribbon twice now, which is fantastic. But the time frame is too small, so if we look at this on the 4 hour, we are now starting to develop some momentum here on the 4 hour. So let's see if we get follow through on this. It's still too early to make big conclusions on this, but it is nice to see. However, on the daily chart, it's looking great. On the daily chart, we flipped back to bullish, and we have successfully found support off this EMA ribbon a good number of times now, and it's also allowing the chart to rise up a little bit. So, to me, it is looking good from that perspective. And ultimately, the number one thing that I think we've got to keep in mind is that, anything down here, anything below here, we're going to get a little bit more bearish, but we're still super bullish on a longer term scale, in my opinion. And anything above here, we're already due to be setting all-time highs as far as I'm concerned. So that could definitely start taking place. I'm also, of course, interested in Bitcoin's dominance. I've been expecting Bitcoin's dominance to rise up to 60% for a very long time. I was talking about this extensively on my channel, which is linked below, Sami Loyal Forflies. You can find that in the description. I've been calling for Bitcoin's dominance when it was down here at about like the 40s, to come up to the 60s, right? So we're still well on our way. Obviously, things got shaken up a little bit because Ethereum woke up and stuff like that with the ETF narrative, but you guys know my thoughts on that stuff. Yes, it's fun. It's a really fun thought experiment and stuff like that, but I just don't care as much as everybody else cares about things like ETFs. I'm much, much more interested in what the chart is telling me, and the chart is telling me that we have broken out of all of our zones of resistance before the 60% zone. So naturally, the only thing that this chart would do typically, or any chart would do typically, is when you break a zone of resistance, you go up to the next one. So, I haven't lost sight of that. And in fact, we've continued to validate my hypothesis because we had this as a zone of resistance and we've now flipped it into support successfully twice. So, I like to pay attention to these real world signs. I still think that Bitcoin's probably going to climb in strength. And I think that makes a lot of sense because if Bitcoin starts setting brand new all time highs again, then naturally Bitcoin's going to be the star of the show, right? And if Bitcoin's the star of the show, then other coins are not going to be so interesting, again, purely from that psychological perspective of, you don't want to take unnecessary risk if you're already making money because you don't need to. You're already making money, right? But if you're not making money, if money is slowed down, you know, like the Bitcoin price is kind of stagnant and sideways like it has been lately, that's when you start to see kind of altcoins waking up. And of course, that's exactly what we saw. For example, obviously Solana doing incredibly well over these recent weeks since Bitcoin entered this range. And of course, Ethereum really being the star of the show recently as well. So Ethereum has kind of lost a little bit of strength against Bitcoin here. It's gotten rejected off this very long-term trend line that I've had on my chart here for Ethereum, and it's been struggling at this level. So this is going to be interesting. My stance on Ethereum remains that I believe it is going to continue to fall down. I've had this stance for pretty much up here since we were at 0.08 BTC per token. That's when I sold every single one of my Ethereum tokens, pretty much. I maybe hold a little bit of dust now, but nothing crazy. And you know, this to me is what's really interesting, because obviously I'm looking for the easy ways to make money, right? I mean, you know, you can choose to make your life difficult, or you can choose not to, and I choose not to. You know, and so for me, actually, trading Ethereum against Bitcoin is one of the easiest ways to make money, because you don't have to remove your exposure to crypto, but you can trade something a little bit higher risk for a significantly higher reward, perhaps, as long as you position at the right time. So, you know, for me, I'm still looking for Ethereum to come down either into this box or this red line at a minimum, otherwise down here to the 0.03 BTC per token range. So that's going to be something I'm interested in. However, this is a pump, and because it's also overcome some of these zones of resistance, if this consolidation continues to go on, that can be your sign that the market is going to move up, right? It's the same thing I've already said about Bitcoin. If you're starting to get comfortable at your resistance levels, then actually that can be a sign that the bears are not in control. And if the bears are not in control, well, naturally the bulls are going to be in control. So if that's the case, then I think this could end up breaking out and Ethereum gaining a little bit of strength against Bitcoin. You know, and that would obviously be great for Ethereum holders. I'm still not going to hold my breath for it. You know, I think the markets have been pretty clear. You know, when the markets are trending up, altcoins get punished. And, you know, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be like, yeah, but I know better than the trend. You know, I'm going to go with the trend. The trend knows best, you know, and it doesn't really matter what my bias is, because the kind of habits that I'm describing right now are the kind of habits that make money. And obviously, I'm going to prioritize that over, oh my god, Ethereum is pumping up and there's an ETF and everybody else is excited, so I'm going to buy. You know, that kind of mentality don't quite sit right with me. So that's not something that I bring in with my analysis either. But yeah, other than that, looking pretty good. There's a couple more things I want to take a look at just to really show where we are. You know, things that I quite like. Obviously, we've got this fixed range point of control, which just kind of validates the analysis that you've already seen. We've got our beautiful point of control down here at about 67.7. It's moved up a little bit. Our value area high is right where we got rejected. This entire big spike is where we would expect support, right? So that's been pretty cool. And the next big spike kind of starts in about 64 and comes down to about 63, right? So again, more or less where my boxes are. So that is absolutely great. And if we take a look at a couple, pardon me, if we take a look at a couple of Fibonacci's as well, just drawing this particular Fibonacci from the absolute low to the all-time high that we set within this little cycle, within this little trend, or range, I should say, actually, we have phenomenal 382 Fibonacci support down at this $67,000 price level. And I think that's exactly why Bitcoin was able to bounce off this price level. And we've got phenomenal 618 support down here as well. And of course, you can draw them both ways, because the 618 and 382 levels are mirrors of each other. So you've got that beautiful 618 price level right here at the $61,000 price range as well. So, you know, support down here, resistance up here, you get the breakout, probably all-time highs. Drop down here, there's more support, nothing too worrying at this stage. Obviously, you know, every time you blow an opportunity to break out, you know, you are going to be then looking at the other side, right? So these kind of things become a hell of a lot more likely if you fail, you know, but again, like, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to, you know, get overly excited or upset before key levels are even broken. So there you go, ladies and gents. I hope you have enjoyed this live stream here on the Financial Summit channel. We've had a little bit of volatility today. It's definitely an exciting day. I think that we are going to be coming toward that resolution soon, like I said. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I will see you guys again on my Friday show. And of course, if you want to catch more of me, you can do that with the link to the Sami Loyal Forflies channel in the description below. I'm going to be covering a couple of trade setups that I'm interested in as well. In the next video that I'll be putting out, you'll see that up on the channel in about, I don't know, an hour or two from now. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. But meanwhile, While you're getting down there, smash up the likes on this video, on this live stream, and double check that you are subscribed to the Financial Summit channel. A lot of people watch videos of channels that they like without even realizing that they haven't subscribed yet. And that's a problem for you because you actually want to watch some of these videos, maybe from a different creator, maybe from this channel or whatever, but you're not subscribed. So YouTube gets to decide when you watch them, not you. So if you're okay with that, then fair enough. But if you're not, that big red button is waiting for you. There you go. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you all very much. I'll see you all in the